Well, today I want to talk about self-help books, self-help groups, self-help. But before I go into self-help, I want to talk about structural social work. And Carlene and I were just saying, we've been talking all summer about all kinds of things for our social work with victims of abuse listeners and our family counseling listeners, and maybe now also we're headed towards our women in social policy counselors and so on. So always I'm making the assumption that we are embedding everything we talk about within a structural social work perspective. So we have to be careful because the wider world will often want to push onto individual responsibility all kinds of stories and situations. There's often this kind of slide back of, oh, everybody should just pull up their bootstraps, get a good job, pay for their services, organize their own lives, be responsible, do the right thing, set a goal. These are all very admirable practices, and we would wish them for everybody. But if you're born in some dump or a peace man love well log cabin in the middle of nowhere, and your mom has schizophrenia and uses every kind of drug on earth, and your dad abandons you, and you've got two younger sisters, and your mom locks the three of you in a root cellar when you're 3, 4, and 5 years old, and constantly abuses you and traumatizes you, and you're a little child and you don't understand, for somebody to say, hey, you're 6 years old, pull up your bootstraps, get a job, get a plan, set some goals. Well, this is ridiculous. The same would be for the mom to say, Mom, just clear yourself up of that schizophrenia, stop doing drugs, become a good parent, be a good wage earner. She's living in a log cabin in the middle of nowhere. What jobs are there? The husband that she thought was going to love on her and cherish her for the rest of her life, and that's part of how she consented to have 3 children, has abandoned her. Right? So we always want to be looking at the context, and we are making the assumption in all of these videos, in all of these conversations, that we as a collective society owe each other kindness, responsibility, and best wishes. Not just in an abstract prayers, and what is this they say when people die?
Thoughts and prayers.
Thoughts and prayers. So, yeah. At the same time, we want material, substantive, actual supports to be in place. Thoughts and prayers are nice. I'm not opposed to thoughts and prayers about vulnerable people. But we need to have, through the whole life cycle, a constant recognition that we are all in this together. At any moment in the life cycle, any of us could need resources and supports from the collective whole. So we wish, we structural social workers, we social justice activists, we wish that through the whole life cycle we all pay sales tax, provincial tax, federal tax, municipal tax. Through that collective wealth, we want to have hospitals, good schools. We want to be able to give tuition and student grants to people going to college or university to enhance their skills. At any moment in the life cycle, any of us could get hit by a car, or we could develop MS or cancer, and then we need support. Any of us could be harmed by a stray bullet, or harmed by toxic water, or any kind of invasion on our best selves can happen at any time in the life cycle. People like to think, well, that'll never happen to me. I'll never get sick. I'll never be unemployed. I'll never have a child with a disability. I'll never have a heart attack and become unable to speak and in a wheelchair for the remaining 25 years of my life in a nursing home. We all wish to think we're magical, and that we have guardian angel unicorns splashing sparkle juice and magic fabulousness around us at all moments of our lives, and we live to be 90 with nothing but bliss and joy and all kinds of resources and supports, but that's not how it works. Right? It just isn't. So, given the assumption of all those structures and resources and supports, within that, there can also be, of course, individual responsibility and individual personal growth. So when I say self-help, I want to make really clear that's the background or foundation on which I'm offering this up. Now, as social workers, we have this sort of dual thing going on at all moments of our own personal growth, well-being, enrichment, encouragement, affirmation, all that stuff, and fretting about and focusing on the well-being and growth and so on of all of our clients. So we're going in two directions in a way every single day. We wake up and all of that is there, right? So, having said that, I want to tell you, among my other addictions, I have the addictions of sparkle pens and cats to keep me cheerful, and I'll perhaps come back to more of that. But self-help. I'm a big, big believer in whatever you didn't get when you were born. So, let's say your mother didn't know how to be a really good parent because she didn't have those skills, but you want to have a child. There really isn't that much of an excuse anymore to remain ignorant of how to be a better parent. Right now we have, everybody's got Google. You can go to any library anywhere these days, or even on your phone you can Google and learn about how to help my child eat their vegetables, or how to help my child with their impulse control. There's really right now an incredible wealth available to all of us about knowledge. So myself kind of being an old-fashioned person, because I'm almost 60, I still utilize books. Books are very good things. So when I say book, you could translate to disc, hologram, brain implant, whatever it is that is the of the moment most trendy way to encapsulate and deliver knowledge. But I'm going to talk for this video about books. Ongoingly through the whole life cycle, we all have things that we should be considering as areas of growth. If somebody says, if somebody says, I know everything, I'm the best person, I know all the words, I'm a genius, don't be that person. That's called Trump. Don't be a Trump. Don't be a Trump wannabe. Don't be like a Trump. That's a bad thing to be. The rest of us who are rational, self-actualizing, humble, based in the real world, we realize we all have areas of our lives that we wish to expand on and grow or reflect upon. We all have flaws, we all have weaknesses. But in social work, you kind of have this double thing that, let's say if I was a carpenter, nobody really cares that much about my self-esteem, let's say. Or they don't really care about my insomnia. They don't really care about my irritable bowel syndrome. If I'm being hired as a carpenter, I gotta show up, cut wood, make a cabinet, nail stuff together. My personhood is not so much a part of, let's say, means of production or the means of getting through the day. If I'm a social worker and let's say I'm struggling with clinical depression, that's a personal issue, but it's also a professional issue, because if I sit around and I'm vulnerable to start crying every time a client shows up 5 minutes late or 5 minutes early, I'm shaping the well-being of my client. So I need to both reflect on the growth and needs and vulnerabilities of my clients and of myself at all times. It's just a fact, right? So one of my things is procrastination. And I have so many procrastination books, and I've had them over the years, and they give me different reminders, different sort of, little quotes you pick up and you put them on the front of your journal page or beside your bed on a sticky or above your coffee pot on a pretty card. What I'm here today to just say is, at all times during your career as a social worker, you should have one or two, in my opinion, 1 or 2 or 3 or 53 self-help books on the go. There's something is in your life that you may never solve. I may always be a procrastinator, but I remain on alert for new quotes, new books, new ideas, new strategies to be less of a procrastinator. Simultaneously, I look at the world around me, going back to our structural social work. If the world around me is constantly giving me 57 new things to learn and to do, and 87 new tasks, and 45 new problems, I'm being set up to procrastinate with some of them, because you can't achieve superhuman goals in short periods of time. Okay? So we're constantly kind of looking at the world around us and saying, am I depressed because there's a ton of really sad things happening in the world right now and in my day-to-day, and my husband died 6 months ago? Right? Is that why I'm depressed? Or to what extent is that why I'm depressed? Or let's say I have poor impulse control. Do I have poor impulse control because my parents didn't teach me new skills? Or do I have, to some extent, poor impulse control because my manager is screaming at me 50 times a day? Right? So we're always going back and forth. And I want to take a little bit of an idea from harm reduction. There are some things in your life that you may never become perfect at. And for me, procrastination is one of those ones. But I do take pride in that I keep trying to. I reread this book once a year at the beginning of every semester. I reread this book and reread the highlighted parts, or this one here. Start finishing my projects. And I'm one of these people, as a creative person, I have all kinds of painting projects and art projects and yard projects and gardening projects and cute outfits I might want to make someday for my cats. I was going through a box recently and I found this bee costume that is meant for cats, but I needed to put some Velcro on it, and I looked at it for a long time, and then I thought, I was going to throw this away. So that was it. I had been procrastinating on finishing the cat costume of a busy bee Halloween outfit for my cats. And I've come to the realization at almost 60 years old, it's okay that my cats not have Halloween outfits. I'm going to just let that one go. I'm not even going to procrastinate on it anymore, which is exactly what these procrastination books recommend. They say there's some goals, just let them go. You got to set priorities. You got to be realistic. You got to map out your resources. You got to see who you can delegate to, and so on, right? Mm-hmm. So, for social work with victims of abuse, for family counseling, for women in social policy, for any kind of social worker, ongoingly reflect on where in your, let's say, portfolio of human characteristics and attributes, where do you have some weak points? And we all have some weak points. So if you're a third-year social work student and you say to me in practicum, I don't need to learn any of these things because I already read a book on that last year, I'm going to dispute that with you.
For a variety of reasons.
I'm going to say to you, everybody has some weak points. Whether, you're shy to speak in public, or you're not as organized as you would wish to be, or you procrastinate, or you have poor impulse control, or you're not assertive, as assertive as you could be, or you're not courageous enough, or there's a 1,000 human attributes and characteristics that we all carry around with us in bundles. Mm-hmm. And at all times in your life cycle, there will be one or two or three things that you're going to wish to keep nudging forward. So if you're in your 3rd year practicum or your 4th year practicum, or you've been in a job for 10 years and your supervisor says to you, what are one or two things that you would wish to expand on or learn or deepen or amplify or change? And you say, nothing. I read a book on that once. You're not being fully authentic and truthful. You're not being your best self. Is there at least one thing that off the top of your head, as I talk about this, that you've been struggling with or wishing to push forward?
I'm really bad for, like, I'm good most of the time, but the moment that I struggle with my mental health, my procrastination goes, like, way the fuck up.
We'll take turns with this book.
Yeah.
We'll start a little self-help group for 2 people here.
Yeah.
Procrastinate, yes. And it'll change as your life cycle changes. And sometimes if you have already this many things going on, procrastination will fall down. Your house is on fire. You're not going to say, oh, I think I'll procrastinate on leaving the house, right? It changes all the time. The same with being assertive. There might be times in your life when you're feeling confident and strong and healthy and centered and things have been going well. It's easy to be assertive, or more easy in some higher conflict situations to be assertive. If your partner left you and your bills aren't paid and your car broke down and you have a stomach ulcer right now and your bunny died yesterday, you may not feel assertive today, right? So I really, really want to emphasize this. I've been supervising 3rd year practicums now for 20 years in this job, and every year there will be 1 or 2 or 3 people who kind of take that position of, I don't have anything to learn in any of these realms. They may not say it as bluntly as that, but I can tell by their what they hand in to me or what they comment on in their agency reports and so on, right? That they're not really going as deep and bravely or truthfully into themselves. And often I can pretty quickly see, hey, you could be more humble. Hey, you could be more self-aware, right? When people take that position of, I know everything I need to know. I have grown in every way that I could ever grow. And I think, you're 24. It's kind of improbable that you've reached full transcendence.
Yeah, you probably got a lot to work on.
You
just don't know it.
Yeah, you just don't know it yet. You just don't know it yet. And after you get fired from 3 or 4 jobs, my little friend,
you'll start to realize maybe the problem was you.
Yeah, it was you. Or if you're on your 5th divorce or something, you'll start to realize, oh, my communication skills are a little bit lame. So, procrastination is one of my things, and I have books like this one of defining projects, setting in place time frames, scheduling them, breaking it up, setting achievable goals, and so on. I check in with this one at the beginning of most semesters, those kinds of things. I like these kinds of books sometimes, Brene Brown, or there's Oprah, some of these popular books, Stephen Covey, with his ideas around the family, youth, work. I've got at least one of them in my little pile here somewhere from Stephen Covey. They're here. These, sometimes if a book sells millions and millions of copies for years and years and years, there might be something really useful in that for you too. Even if you are that 23-year-old social worker who feels you know all things about all things. And these powerful lessons in personal change. And I think this book is 20 years old, 25 years old. Let's see what he's got here. It's his outline. So this book, I'm guessing everybody's heard of this guy, Stephen Covey. And he's not a social worker, but he can give you some little quick tips that might help you. And he's got 7 habits, and these are about have your personal vision, begin a process or a project with the end point in mind. So if in a year from now I have to hand in some statistics on my groups that I do on Tuesday nights, I don't have to hand in the report for a year. But I do have to start designing a little questionnaire for the people who are in my groups every Tuesday night. Today was a little Likert scale with the happy, sad faces, that kind of thing. So you design a really simple little survey. You give it to the group members at the end of every session. You do that for 50 weeks, and then you add it all up and you hand in your final report. But if you don't design your little happy face survey until a week before the report is due, you're in trouble, because it's too late now to collect data from all the groups that you've done, right? So begin with the end in mind. By the time I retire, I want to have my mortgage paid off. Therefore, I've got 136 paychecks left. That means this much money per paycheck, per month, per year, so on, right? Some of my students, I see them the first weeks of the semester, and I can almost, at this point in my life, sounds kind of pompous and self-grandiose, but I can pretty much in the first week or two of school tell who are the people who are going to get an A, because they will ask a lot of questions about the course outline, and I can see them with their day planners, and they're, okay, this is due on this day, and this has to be 10 pages, and I can see them mapping it all out, and okay, there's just 5 classes, and in each class I have to do 3 assignments, and they're mapping it all out, and they're setting up little study groups. Okay, could we work every Thursday night from 5 till 7 on these assignments with their colleagues? Go. Those people are organized. They don't procrastinate. They got this figured out. They're breaking things down into incremental little steps because they know by the end of this 13-week semester, these are the things I have to achieve. So they're beginning with the end in mind. Personal management, interpersonal leadership, empathetic communication, creative cooperation, self-renewal, and possible perceptions flowing out of various centers. So this guy, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, this is the kind of book that, once a year you flip through it and kind of, oh, okay, I could improve in 2 tiny ways right here. Or I could fix this in one way if I did this thing. Mm-hmm. Through the whole life cycle. He's got a set of books about teenagers, and 7 highly effective for teenagers, 7 highly effective for families, stuff like that. Read them. Invest in them. Get a little study group going with your friends that you each pick 1 or 2 books a year and share the books. Colleen and I just decided we're going to do a procrastination thing and keep each other on the good path. One of the things we know about AA, which is one of the AA for some people, has been one of the most effective groups in the history of our species, really. Like AA is everywhere in the world. And one of the reasons that AA is so effective for some people is it's got 12 steps, it's got little ideas. You show up for your meetings once a week or once a month. You build in a support person. Mm-hmm. You have a sponsor who you can check in with. Those basic ideas, all of us could do that in the social work workplace, right? Kind of, who will be my mentor in this new job or this new journey I've just taken on? Oh, this person, find that person, buy them lunch twice a month. And ask them questions about how you could continue to evolve your effective habits, right? Mm-hmm. And all of these things, I'll tell you one that procrastination is one of my continual growth journeys, but also finances. I'm quite bad at finances, quite bad. When my husband was alive, one of the things we did, because it's good to know your weaknesses and then build in barriers. I've heard the expression firewall it. So
I felt like Carlene proofing.
Yeah. So some people with my husband, because he was very frugal and wise and he was not at all impulsive, he had a credit card that he could spend up to $16,000 on. I have 2 credit cards, each of which I can only spend $1,500 on. So the most disaster I can ever get myself into is $3,000. But if we needed to buy something like a new furnace or I don't know, a fridge or something more expensive, him and I would dialogue, I would do research, and then it would have to be his credit card that paid for it. right? So sometimes you can build that in. One of the other little things that I've done is every paycheck, there's 3 little spots that money goes to automatically. Automatically all my bills come off, but then there's, I forget what I call it, like pension fund and RSP, and I don't know, I think I called one of them taxes just so that it sounded pompous, the little label, and it automatically goes there. So every now and then I'll go, oh look, I got $400 there, woo! I could go buy a new printer or something like that, right? So it forces me to save, and I built that in. So those little self-help, self-care, self-strategy, self-growth promoting strategies, this is the kind of thing Stephen Coffey talks about. Those of you who, let's say, have difficulty with public speaking, there are places like Carnegie, Toastmasters. There's an organization you can go to, and I think it's free, or almost free, like AA, and you can learn about public speaking and becoming more confident. Part of what I'm wishing you to get from this particular video, whether it's social work with victims of abuse or family counseling, is that there will always in your life be moments and bits of yourself that you can nudge a little bit forward. And the only way it's going to get forward is if you make weekly, daily, monthly, yearly choices to nudge it a little bit forward. And if you put yourself in positions where you kind of have no choice. Like, I couldn't spend $16,000 because my husband had that card. Done, right? I only had, the worst I could ever do was $3,000. I never did that, but I could get both my cards up to the top, and then if I wanted another $10, I got to ask Ken, right? And I have a friend that had gone through bankruptcy, and what she did was she put her, I don't know where she got this idea.
Put a card in the freezer?
In the freezer! In the freezer! So if she wanted to buy something, she could go and look at it. She could maybe put $10 on it to hold it, and then she'd have to go home, get her credit card, let it melt down, and come back and pay.
My friend ended up having to give up his bank card, and he gave it to his girlfriend, and his girlfriend gave him, they had to set up a different bank account that they transferred money into, and he got a certain amount a week, and it was literally because he had zero impulse control when it came to things online.
There you go. There you go. We all have things, right? Whether it impulse control, confidence, public speaking, time management, all of these things. Accountability, being a better parent, being a better a listener, being present, being emotionally available, being attuned. There's 1,000 traits, let's say, that make up the fully Buddha, Muhammad, Jesus, right?
A self-actualized person.
Yeah, person who's grown to, and all 4 of them since the beginning of our species. But the rest of us are always in motion. Admit that about yourself. Don't see it as a bad thing. Again, when I do practicum supervisions, I've had students, they get their body language going, and I can tell when I'm trying to give them some suggestions for growth areas in their life. They feel it as a threat. They feel it as confrontation. They feel it as harsh, rather than I'm trying to mentor you and guide you, and that's what you paid me to do when you hired me to be your practicum supervisor, in effect, right? When you sign up to do your 3rd year School of Social Work, you know you're going to do a practicum, and you know you're going to have a supervisor, and that's my job that you hired me for.
I'm just trying to do mine.
Right, but the student may feel like, why are you picking on me? Why are you hassling me? Why are you giving me a hard time? I'm not. I'm letting you know that as my husband went through these difficult times this last 5.5 years, I ended up with about 20 books on a woman's guide to healing, managing grief, creating moments of joy. What do people who have cancer want you to know? I've got a stack of books like that about how to manage my way emotionally through this difficult terrain that I was thrown into. You will be thrown into things. Maybe as a social worker, maybe you're doing couple counseling, and the 3rd year into your job, your husband leaves you. This can happen. Or, I can't tell you again how many social workers I've had who are doing some kind of family stuff or kid stuff, and their own kid ends up doing drugs and gets in trouble, or their own kid steals and ends up in jail, and they're like, I can't even admit this. I can't even talk about this.
A marriage counselor whose own relationship is falling apart.
Exactly. That see it as part of the magic of being a human, that you're always in transition. See it as part of your ability to have more empathy and compassion for all.
Continual growth.
Continual growth. All the flawed humans around you are like you, a flawed human. And it can minimize your impulse to be judgmental if you recognize, I have 50 things always a little bit suboptimal or in movement or where I'm not at yet. And there are some things that are inspirational, aspirational, they're direction, but you're never going to get there. I may procrastinate from, I might not make it to my own funeral. That joke, right? You'll be late for your own funeral. Perhaps I will be. I can't tell you yet. I'm going to try to not be late for my own funeral. I'll assign Carlene to text me before, Sai, you died 3 days ago. Hurry up and get to your casket. And I'm like, all right.
About that.
About that, right? It's okay to admit these things. And I would recommend to you to always have 1 or 2, 3 things like that in your life. In one of the other videos, I talked about self-care and about seeing a therapist, and I have a therapist that I see to manage the grief and all of that. If you don't figure out what those things are, you're vulnerable to spilling over onto your clients. You're vulnerable to making mistakes that you'll look back on 5 or 10 years later and go, oh man, I thought I had that, but it was a blind spot. And a blind spot is, ipso facto, a spot you don't see. Because that's what it means to be human, right? And another one that is now in my life is aging. As a woman of almost 60, my birthday is in exactly a month, and I'll be 60. And our culture talks, when you're old, nobody wants you, and you're going to die alone, and you're fat and ugly, and you're going to get sick, and you're going to be frail, and, there's sort of subconscious vibes always coming at us as we age about what does it mean to be an old woman in the world, right? And so I'm trying to, on the one hand, recognize what the world has told me, but then also do reality checks on that and say, maybe those were true in the thousands of years before, but a modern woman who's 60 could be like Hillary Clinton, or, still very astute and alert and out in the world and doing things. And we've had the stereotype of if you're an old woman, you're supposed to dress in gray and be in the background. But then there's other women now who are 60, 70, 80, and they're wearing reds and purples and cool, funky hair and
covered in tattoos.
And they're being all the things that they want to be, because why not? Who said that when you're old, that you're supposed to look a certain way? And I share this with you that it's not the kind of thing, again, when a 23-year-old says to me, in their 3rd year practicum in social work, that, no, I took that course last year, I know everything about Indigenous issues, right? Or I went to that workshop on depression. I went to that 1-day workshop on depression, so I've got this.
Yeah.
Well,
I met a depressed person. I'm good.
I'm good. That's right. You have something, and that's good, and it's important to be proud of what you have learned or what you've accomplished. But keep every little door open a smidgen for new information to come in, for new verve, for new strategies. Sometimes even finding, you may know an idea, but there's a new way to phrase it, or there's a cool saying right now. Since my husband left, I've been trying to give myself more music. We didn't really have a lot of music in our lives, and so I've been looking up music. And like rockabilly, and last night I saw because I identify as white bush trash, right? So Appa rock or something, Appalachian rock kind of thing. So I'm seeing all these new words that young people are mixing and matching. So there used to be 20 country music and pop music, but now what I'm finding great delight in is how folks are mixing hip hop and rock and fiddles and harmonica and all the instrument is just fusion, whatever. Let's see how it all goes. And I watched one last night. It looked like a bunch of sort of redneck guys with the head shaved and everything. I was like, ooh, scary, and I was gonna like get away from them on my little phone. And then they started talking about how much they love the bush and they love trees and squirrels. I was kind of like, that's an eco-feminist message. They were giving an eco-feminist message, although they look like sort of Aryan rights guys, but they were fusion, right? They were just mixing it and mashing it all up. Dixie Chicks, a more common one, right?
Who have now changed their names
to just Chicks.
The Chicks.
Which, as a feminist, I'm like, Chicks is not, that's not cool. That was not cool just to call women Chicks. That was a diminishment. Because chicks are small little birds with yellow fluff that you could squish, right? So I'm curious, remain curious all your life about new ways for information to come to you, new ways to phrase things.
Well, and normalize updating or changing your opinions because of new information or new rephrasing. Like, I found that, like, there seems to be this weird, like, even with celebrities where they'll have said something really ignorant in the past, but people demonize them for it, but they don't really consider the fact that since then you might have changed your opinion, you might have gotten new information, you might have whatever, and it's completely okay for you to have not known something, receive new information, and then change your stance.
Beautiful. I love that when people admit that and do it, and yay, let's all do that. We're all going to be growing throughout the whole life cycle, right? So, for today's message, I just wanted to say, 1, it's okay to admit that you've got blind spots. 2, it's okay to ongoingly be imperfect even in those troubled areas. So I admit I have clinical depression. I admit I procrastinate. I admit I have financial impulse control issues. I admit my cats ruin my life.
We may have a small cat hoarding problem.
Cat hoarding problem. Some people might say I have suboptimal dining room hygiene. As the cats walk all over the table. So it is your magic and your superpower to admit all these areas that could benefit, to reach out and grow, and to note that every year for the rest of my life, I might read or reread or reread or reread my procrastination books. And I nudge forward. I am incrementally better at procrastination, resisting procrastination than I was 3 years ago or 10 years ago or 30 years ago. I am much more effective at managing my depression than I was 3 years ago or 30 years ago. And that's something to be prideful about. It's a good thing. It's a very, very good thing. And the other part that I wanted to get out to you today is two parts to it. The more you can see yourself as a very complex being with a whole sort of, like a pizza cut in 500 parts, you have these little slices of yourself that could benefit from more cheese or onions or whatever, like an enrichment. The more you can see yourself that way, the more you can be patient and non-judgmental with everybody around you, not just your clients, but your family, your neighbors, your colleagues, your supervisors. If you're harsh and judgmental with yourself and brisk and shallow, and like I read a book on that 1 year and I'm done with that topic, right? If you contain yourself in that way of being brittle, let's say, you're going to put that on other people too. You won't realize it until 10, 20 years later, or your 5th divorce, or fired 5 times. Yeah, maybe it's a personal thing I could change. Also, sometimes you find the perfect little expressions and ways from this type of reading, those inspirational quotes or those quick ideas, that when you're working with clients, it's one more harvest of beauty that you can deliver to them, to be able to offer those quick little, oh, have you tried this idea? Have you tried this strategy? One of the ones that I've shared a lot with Carly, and it has really helped me with my depression, is, and I use this muscle in myself every single day to say, is there one thing I could do? What's the one time thing? And I went through this yesterday. I had a really hard day yesterday. And I said, what's one thing I could do? Well, I could load the dishwasher. I could try and load the dishwasher. If I could get up off the couch and walk over to the dishwasher. That would be pretty good if I could do that. So I'd walk over to the dishwasher, load the dishwasher. And then I think, is there one thing that I could still do today? Well, I could load the washing machine. And then once you've loaded the washing machine, well, now I'm downstairs. I might as well go turn on my computer. Could I turn on my computer and just fool around on Facebook for a while? Yeah, I could do that. And then when I'm fooling around on Facebook, I remember, oh, that student wanted me to email them back. Is there one thing? So through my whole day, my brain is always saying, is there one more thing? Is there one thing? And then quite often, if not always, by bedtime, that one idea of, is there one more thing? Is there a little thing I could do? What's the least I could do in front of the dishwasher? Right? It kind of propels me throughout the day, and by bedtime, almost always, I'm able to say, well, I did 42 little things today. Well, yeah, me, yeah. And I have a life, right? So that one little mental tool, let's say, really helped me once I got that. Because it was big before, oh my God, my life is really big and hard and scary and awful. Clinical depression tricks your brain that way, right? It says, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing. Right? No, I could at least rinse the dishes in the sink before I put them in the dishwasher, right? And I tell you, that one thing, with each client and each person around you and each of the 50 or 500 little pizza slices, sometimes that one little expression, and probably each of us, if we sat here long enough, could think of one or two little, let's say, brain tricks, or psychic tricks, or soul nudges, or whatever, however you label them.
Yeah.
They make a difference. So if you can find 500 every year, little nudges, you build a life. And of course, we know this from solution-focused therapy and from feminist therapy and indigenous therapy. The more you have strengths that you build on, the more you feel like building on your strengths. Right? If I feel like, oh wow, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon and I have loaded the dishwasher, I loaded the laundry, I put the laundry away, I did the cat boxes, I took all my pills, I responded to 3 students. Oh, I still have 8 hours left that I could do stuff today. What's the thing I could do? Okay? And you feel a little bit more jazzed up because you've already got some success earlier in the day. You're smiling a big smile. You can't see the big smile on your face. Do you have 1 or 2 things that come to your mind like that help you get forward?
When I don't, like same thing with my depression, I don't get, it's really hard to find myself motivated to do anything. Mm-hmm. So if that one thing that I'll tell myself to do is that one thing that I really fucking hate.
Okay.
And that's because the moment that I start getting up to do that thing, I'll think of literally any other thing that I'd rather do. And if I can accomplish one of those, then I'm golden.
I get what you mean by that, right? People have made jokes about that when their essay is due tomorrow morning. That's when they decide to clean out the freezer or something. Like, why are you cleaning the freezer in the middle of the night? Well, I'm doing that to distract myself from the anxiety I have about myself. Well, at least tomorrow when your essay is not done, but your freezer's clean, you did something, right? Versus binge eating or slashing or drinking or what other. There are so many ways that humans
cope with things. Like that.
that are not as healthy in the longer run, or harm reduction of cleaning the freezer. For me, it's journaling now. I binge journal. I've been journaling for 4 hours. I'm making notes on everything on TV, right? Oh, this is why I hate Trump. This is why I love Kamala Harris. This is why Biden is a good candidate. Like, I'm journaling about what I'm seeing on TV, versus earlier in my life, I might have eaten every cookie in the house and ordered pizza and eaten that too, and my stomach would literally be about to vomit, and I'd still be pushing food in my mouth.
I'm not done emotionally eating yet.
Yeah. It's better to journal about why I hate Trump than to force my body to take in food it doesn't want or need, right? So I just really, really wish you see yourself as on a journey. It's a whole life cycle thing. The more fully rounded and resilient and juiced up and jazzed up you are as a person, the more you can be a better social worker. The more you also will have that whole collection of little tools that you can offer to clients. I always have baskets of self-helpy stuff on the go, and I'm always lending them out to clients. That's another thing you can do too, is sometimes when you have a little bit of experience in your particular agency, let's say self-esteem. If you're working in a women's organization, you know self-esteem is going to be self-esteem, boundaries, clear communications, right? You can have 10 books and then you find the best and you photocopy those pages and you give them out to clients. So, whatever you learn for you often is very relevant to the client groups that you're magnetized towards, right? So thank you very much for being with us on this video today, more about self-help, and always remembering all of that self-help stuff we just talked about is built upon the foundations of really robust, strong federal, provincial, municipal structural supports and resources. I'm in no way wanting to blame any of the victims or any of the vulnerable people in the world. And I'm wanting to simultaneously change the structures, but sometimes my procrastination is my procrastination issue. I can't blame that on the federal government. Thank you, Tuva. Thank you, Carlene.